All right. Let's get rid of that. And here we are. Hello. Welcome to another conlang with me session. It's been a while since I've done a stream in general. And I'm happy to be here. I'm excited for today. We are doing a new conlang, starting a brand new conlang today. Just got to adjust some things. Okay, I think that's good. Let me go to my biggest page right now, which is, I think, the phonology. Is that cut off? Yes, it is. All right, there we go. That should be okay for now. I'll mess with it if it needs to be changed again. All right, so today we're making, as I said, a new conlang, but first I'm going to get rid of some, not get rid of some, but address some housekeeping things. It's been a minute since I've been streaming. Yeah, I apologize for that. I should be getting back into streaming every week. That's the plan, at least. And I also know that it's been a long time since we've had any kind of Yesterlore type content. The reading from the Vedic Sanskrit that I planned in June, or actually in May, to do in June, the universe just does not want that to happen. So, for the foreseeable future, we are not going to do that. If I can circle back to that, I will. We will do that at some point. But it's not in the near plans moving forward right now. Just an update on that. But there will be some Yesterlore type content stuff. We're going to be reading some Old English again soon. And then for the fall, I have some plans. There's a few things that I definitely want to be doing Yesterlore-wise for the fall. Some sort of spooky themed or Halloween-ish themed stuff that we will be reading from some medieval manuscripts. That's going to be fun. And then the next journal stream, I think next week will be a journal stream. Going to update on that. I started using a new journal, bullet journal, so I will be getting into that next week. Will that be next week? I think it will be next week. It might be 2 weeks from now, because there's another thing that I'm going to do, which is I've had a Patreon exclusive series going this whole time that hasn't really stopped. And I was going to do a short preview of what that series is like, just to show you what I've been doing on Patreon for my patrons. So, speaking of patrons, shout out to Fishy Lawngnome for being an Iridian level patron. Thank you so much for helping this stream, this whole thing, this whole channel happen. And if you're wondering how to find that, just look in my profiles everywhere. It's linked everywhere. Twitch, YouTube, description. Yeah, I think that's it for housekeeping. So what am I doing with this conlang? What's going on here? Well, let's start with the goals page. I don't even have a name for this conlang yet, but I do have some ideas. What I want to do is I want to experiment with some things that I've been wanting to try for a while. It's been a hot minute since I have made a conlang with consonant mutation. And I would like to do that diachronically, and meaning I'm going to take it from a real spoken language and apply sound changes to make the language, at least to develop the language. Sound changes isn't all you have to do, but it's one of the things that happens is that sounds change, and it changes the form of things. So what I'm experimenting with is I want to make a language with consonant mutations. Why is that crossed out? Oh, okay, weird. And general, I guess, lineation in compounds. And I want it to be a Germanic language. Basically, I'm making a Germanic language with some, I guess, Celtic characteristics. I might do some other Celtic-y things. Yeah, some other Celtic characteristics as we go along, like with word order and stuff. I've been wanting to try that for a while, and I've made some Celtic languages, but I've not made a Germanic language that looks Celtic. I've made Germanic languages that look Romance. I've made Romance languages that look Germanic, but I have not made Germanic languages that look Celtic. When I say Celtic, I mostly mean insular Celtic, because it's the insular Celtic languages that seem to have the mutation and stuff going on. So my idea is, I guess this is a Germanic language that had some influence, heavy influence from insular Celtic languages, potentially. I might even do some loans. We'll see. Proto-Germanic already has some Celtic loans, but I might be more intense with it. So that's the idea with this conlang. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sound changes. Let's start actually though with the phonology a little bit. Usually when I start making sound changes for a language, I actually don't do what most people recommend, which is think about what you want your language to sound like. I kind of vaguely do that, but I'm more sort of like let it happen and see if I like it a lot of the time. And that might be why I'm not always super satisfied with the result, because I didn't plan out how I wanted it, and then it doesn't come out how I want because I didn't plan how I want it. And honestly, that's fine. Usually the whole point of these is usually to be ephemeral in some way. I'm going to fix the lighting a little bit, or try to fix the lighting a little bit. Or see if I can do something about it at least. That's too bright. I think that's better, right? Yes, okay, that is better. A bit. That's a bit better, yeah. There we go. Okay, since I changed the blinds, things have been difficult lighting-wise. Thanks for putting up with that. So, this coffee is not good. It's not very good. Oh well. So we're gonna start. I'm actually gonna start off with like putting Proto-Germanic phonology here, and then think a little bit about where I want things to go, how I want things to happen. So Proto-Germanic phonology is kind of weird. So we've got P. I guess I'll keep the same place of articulation and are in the same box. Okay, P, B, T, D. Okay, we got G. Phonemes. But it's a little tricky because B, actually, yeah, that's what I was going to do. They're actually like spirants a lot of the time. Like, the phonemes are actually kind of seem to be the spirants, and then they just become stops in certain environments. Like, it sort of seems like the unmarked form is the spirant most of the time in Germanic. And that's especially true for G. G really likes being a spirant in Proto-Germanic. The reason I did the space thingy is because there's some other sounds that go here, but actually might not need that because you could just put them in a different category. because there's voiceless spirits as well. I need my labiovelars here. And this one is H in some environments, as is this. What am I forgetting? Am I forgetting there's S as well, yeah. And Z. Sibilants. There are no other sibilants. And then, oh, I forgot my nasals. I guess I'll put my nasals down here. We've got M. We've got N. We have an allophone. There's it's not a phoneme. Why am I doing this backwards? There we go. And I guess there's one that's velarized too. But or is there? Am I completely forgetting how this language works? This is, I was being lazy. We spell it with an F. We spell this with a thorn, but it's really these symbols. It's F and F. And we have a lot of evidence for this being F, even to the point, even in Old Norse, it probably still was F and not F in a lot of situations. And then got W, we've got Y, we've got L, we've got R, which is probably a trail. I could have done this in a much more condensed way, is what I'm realizing now. But that's alright. This is what we're working with consonant-wise in Proto-Germanic. Vowels are also kind of interesting. This is going to be interesting to get a Celtic-ish language out of, because yeah, this is going to be interesting. Okay, I might have to like actually flatten the inventory a bit first and then splice it again, which might be pretty tricky to do and preserve a lot of distinctions. We'll see what happens. But the vowels are weird. I'm gonna group the length pairs together just because there's so many. Trying to think about how I want to display the vowels. Yeah, okay. I guess I could put it here. Yeah, so Proto-Germanic also had overlong vowels. You see that's like double length. That's a fun thing about Proto-Germanic. 3 length modes. Oh, and do I have, yeah, I do. Okay. Two of these. We also have which comes in later. It's a later thing. It does exist. And then there's nasal versions of all but these two. Yeah. So there's nasal versions of these, all of them. So I guess I'll just copy them. It goes. I gotta put nasal marks on all of them. Okay. And then you. And since these are IPA characters, I just have to use diacritic. Combining diacritic. All right. So that's the vowel system we've got going on. Gothic does something kind of interesting, and I really like what Gothic does because it kind of makes this less of a nightmare a bit. Gothic, and I might just do what Gothic, I think I always do what Gothic does with my Germanic languages vowels, just because it's so elegant. Basically, this vowel here, the short A sound, only appears in stressed syllables or unstressed syllables before R, where it might have actually gone down to anyway. So what Gothic says is this does not end up distinguishing that many words from each other, because part of it is it's like allophonically conditioned by the presence of R or H. So Gothic says, actually, no, you're going to be an I anyway. And this open and mid-open, open mid and close mid distinction goes away as well. So the long E's merge with each other, which is a lot of phonemes to merge, but Gothic figures it out. And so what happens is you end up with like E, U, U, just long A, just long O, and then you have E, which is from this E before R or H. And then you have a long one, which comes from one of the diphthongs. Oh, I didn't write diphthongs. I didn't write the diphthongs yet. There's some diphthongs in Proto-Germanic too. I guess I'll write them out. Yeah, we've got ew, ew, oh. I think I need another line. You know what? I am gonna. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna make another line. I can afford the space. You, ew. We have like oh, and then there's also I believe oh no, I know, I don't believe, I know. It's there's I and I, yeah. So those are the diphthongs, and Gothic takes these and makes these long versions. So we've also got all and all, and then we've got and I'll just write them back here, but it's more central in Gothic, I believe, is how people usually write it. So yeah, so it ends up being a nice kind of symmetrical vowel system. And the only kind of weird thing is you have an open and mid, open mid and closed mid distinction in the long vowels, but not in the short vowels. It's just a and ah, and they're pretty conditioned when they are. So the short ones come from an E before an R or H, or an U before an R and H, respectively. And then the long ones come from these diphthongs, O and I. Ew, because A is merging with E, ew and ew just become ew. The difference between these is whether or not there's an I present later in the word, usually. So they're sort of alternating with each other already in Proto-Germanic. So Gothic just says it's ew. And I think O. I think there is O and oi still in Gothic. But a lot of the time these just simplify to like a long O anyway. Like this one. So that's cool. So that's what Gothic does. And I really like it, so I usually copy it. So yeah, we'll see what we do this time. What do I mean? We'll see. We're gonna decide. Maybe not everything right now, but just some ideas of things I want to do. Most Germanic languages like say goodbye to the nasalization pretty early on. And I would also be fine saying that, except that I don't know if I want to do something with that, like have a nasal mutation. I think I would rather, though, have a nasal mutation for one of the cases or something. So I think I might get rid of the nasals. Now I think I do want to rewrite these just to make writing my sound changes easier. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call these P and B, T and D, K and G, and then there's different analyses of the labiovelars in early Germanic, but eventually they just become K plus W, G plus W, H plus W anyway. Like the way that they behave in the languages reflects that most of the time. So I'm just going to say the same thing. I'm just going to treat these like they're followed by W. They're this followed by W. That's just going to make my life easier for the sound changes. I'm going to move W over here in that case, which means I can get rid of this row. And since I'm keeping voiced and voiceless together in a line, I'm going to put S and Z there. Now Z is an interesting case in Proto-Germanic because it never occurs word initially. It cannot, because it occurs in places where there was a de-stressed situation in Proto-Indo-European before the S, and so it became Z. So like most of like the endings become Z. S endings usually become Z. Not all of them do, because sometimes there was stress there, and so it stays S. Notably, the genitive singular of A stems and I stems masculine and neuter A stems and I stems. It's is or us, depending on how you want to reconstruct it. There are like two different reconstructions depending on which Germanic language you're looking at. But it's an S there because it was usually something like this in Proto-Indo-European. So that's why it stays S there, but it's Z in most other places. Yeah, those are my phonemes. I might just yeet the nasalization out of there. And I might pull a Gothic and drag everything up a bit. Merge these. So I guess I should also explain what's going on here with like the two E's. Why are there two front E's? Like why are there two front mid vowels but not two front back vowels? These start out as kind of just the long version of this vowel. Most of the time, because this goes back to Proto-Indo-European. Typical reconstruction is O. It becomes A. But A, like H2 also creates A. So it's kind of a merger there in a lot of situations. This is usually the long version, and then this long version of this is kind of weird. This usually comes about as a from loans or from like weird clusters with fricatives going on, or secondarily derived verbs sometimes have it. So this long A is rare in Proto-Germanic. This O is kind of just the long version of this. So it's kind of like these are all like the back version, and then this is the front version. But what's going on with this situation? What's going on here is that we have to reconstruct two different E's because they become two different things in the different Germanic languages. So straight up long E, which isn't very common actually. Like this is a very rare phone. It only shows up in certain words. It's usually written as E2, long E2 in the reconstruction to differentiate it, because what happens with it is it kind of just stays long E like almost everywhere all over the place in all the Germanic languages. So it's like more close. It's more closed, more close mid than open mid because it stays closed. Whereas this E, the open E, the long open E, is the more common one, and it often becomes a long A in the different Germanic languages. But we can see it was a long E. When we compare it to Gothic, it's going to be cognate with long E's in Gothic. And there are some places where it stays a long E as well, depending on the situation and the language we're looking at, or there's evidence that it was long E and then it broke, or something like that. This also breaks sometimes, but we could tell that it stayed a long E for longer. So that's why there's two. Gothic says screw that and just have one, and I might do that as well. But I kind of like the difference a little bit too, so I'll think about that some more. Let me start with the consonants. If I want consonant mutation, what's going to have to happen to this situation? The consonant mutation is going to mostly be word initial. And I'd like to have at least two kinds of mutation, maybe three. I'd like straight up lenition, and that's going to be broken down into voicing and spirantization, and then I'll say spirant, and then I would like some nasal mutation. So 3 mutations is my like ideal. If I only get 2, that's fine. So voicing is where you end up taking a voiceless consonant and then you voice it. Spirantization is where you take a plosive and you spirantize it. Nasalization is where you take a non-nasal consonant and you nasalize it. Pretty self-explanatory there. And I will come up with places where this can get triggered. I would like it to be grammatical that would be my ideal. But my issue is my inventory a little bit. So how do you voice P? You make it B, right? T to D, K to G, right? And then to spirantize P, you know, you make it that. P to the sort of FE sound. And to nasalize it, I guess I could have like a voiceless M. Oops. I always forget how to do the when compose voiceless sound. There we go. Voiceless M. I could do something like that. I don't like voiceless. I don't like having voiceless nasals phonemically. It's hard for me to do. And then for like, now what do we do to B? B is already B. You can't really voice it. You can spirantize it to it's allophone that it already has in Proto-Germanic, and then B can just become M. Now the issue what you run into with like this kind of stuff is you end up creating mergers in certain situations. Like this word will look exactly like a different word in this context, and like you have another situation which is where like certain words can't undergo the mutation because they're already in that format. Like let's take this phoneme and let's take an M and put it through all these. How do you voice this? Well, okay, now we've made it look like a spiranted B, okay, and it already looks like a spiranted P. And then how do you spirantize it? You don't. You leave it the same. And then how do you nasalize it? And then how do you voice of already voiced M? It's already voiced. Okay. You can spirantize it by making it, I don't know, nasalized. And like this does happen. Why am I having such a hard time? I could nasalize. Or you could do like a. How do I do the M with the hook? It's the it's like a V, but nasalized. That's what it is, or not nasalized V. It's a. I guess I could do a nasalized V. That's what Cinderin does, but it's more like that's how Cinderin writes. It's the M with the hook, and it's like a V that you make. It's an M that you make with your teeth and your lips, like a V. And it's already nasal. Now, I say this like it's a problem. Natural languages have this happen. Like this is naturalistic. This happens, but I don't love this situation. I don't like creating this situation very much, if I can avoid it, because it just becomes kind of messy. Like the way that it can end up looking less messy is with the orthography. Like if you write it out, I mean, people will say it looks messy still, but it can at least show you what the original word was. Like you could have this one be written PH, and then this one be written like F, right? And then it becomes a V, whereas this one is written BH, but it's the same sound, right? And then this one could be MH. This is spirantized. This is what Irish does, right? And that's how you get all like the H's like that's also how you get like eventually the nasalized V and the normal V merge, and then these become the same sound in some situations, or sometimes one's a W and not, right? They're different versions, and I'm not even factoring in Irish. You have palatalization versus velarization as well, as is a whole other axis here that doesn't have to do with the mutation. But that's one way to go about it, right? You can change the spelling. You can have the spelling be different, even though the sound is the same, to reflect what the word originally is before it undergoes the process, right? So you'll never, let's say you have a word like pant, and you have a word font, and then pant spirantizes to font, but you won't confuse this font with this font, because you know that this font is actually just pant in a trench coat, like getting spirantized because of that P there. Older Irish used the dots over things. Or you could not do that and just live with the ambiguity, which is what Welsh often does. Welsh just kind of spells things the way that they are with its orthography. There are some exceptions, but there are different approaches that one can take. But this is like, I don't know. This is not ideal. So then the solution, like, or not the solution, but like the question is, what if I just start out with a smaller inventory to work with? Like, let's say I don't have all 4 of these as phonemes in the language, right? I mean, I feel like even just getting rid of the spirants would help a lot, because then spirants are always spirantized versions of the non-spirants, you know? That's less of a hindrance. Maybe I also don't do voicing. Because I'm starting to not like voicing as much, honestly, as a mutation here. It's like the easiest one to do, and it's kind of the most boring one to do for me. I mean, I could figure out something else with the nasalization. I don't know. Maybe I'll do like pre-nasalized. That's kind of nice. I like how pre-nasalized stops sound. Yeah. Yeah, like that's kind of nice. That's kind of elegant. So I need to find something I could do with these boys, then, is the question. What do I do with them? Where do they go? What happens to them if I'm going to get rid of them? I don't want to completely get rid of them. There's so many words that these are used in. These are our Proto-Indo-European PT and K most of the time. So, like, I can't get rid of them wholesale. It's really hard to do that. They're just simply in so many words. So, like, what do I do? One thing I'm considering is sliding things. And what I mean is I do something with this S and Z situation. They're very salient sounds, especially S in Germanic, and I want to do something with them. Because what I would like is for them to get out of the way so that I can make this sound into S. Like, sort of like unlisping, almost. If I can move this boy out of the way, I can drag you down here. I can either fortify H to make it into K or yeet it into nothing. For the most part, yeet it. And then this can lose its labialization and just become H. And then the board is clear, if that makes sense. That would be cool. It would also be very unique sounding. Like, it would be a weird sounding Germanic language, which I kind of think is cool. But S is such a salient sound. It's like so common in Germanic words. I could palatalize it. I mean, Z is easy to get rid of. Like, most of the Germanic languages end up either turning it into an R inside of a word, and then at the end you just drop it. That's what most Germanic languages do, or turn it into an R, like what happens in North Germanic, or S, which is what happens in Gothic at the end of words. So Z is not a problem, but S is a problem. S is all over the place. I could like palatalize it, I could make it sh. I have a lot of sh in the language. Fishka, Xingwan, Schlichtas, sh. So I have like a sh distinction. This becomes sish, sish. That's weird. I don't think I can just get rid of S. I can't just simply get rid of S. It's all over the place. I mean, it's not that I can't, it's that it would be hard. If I just turn S to H in a lot of the places where I can't get rid of it, it's going to merge with F, and that's also weird. But I also can't just merge thorn and S either. What if I don't do spiritization? What if I don't do spiritization? What if I just do voicing? P to B, B. Something like that. And then M just doesn't reflect anything. Are maybe only nasal spirantize. I guess the question is then, what happens to N? Like, let me do this set, like T to D, D is D, Thorn to Ev, Thorn, I even call it Thorn, I'm not using Thorn, I'm using Theta. Actually, yeah, nasals. Nasals are voiced. So it should probably be voiced and nasalized. Maybe this should be the V. And then nasals, yeah, don't change. Because what I was thinking is, what if that would happen here? I guess it would be like a nasalized eth, like something like that. That is illegible. You cannot see the nasalization mark at all. Like that. Yeah, it's weird. Nasalized. Yeah. Weird. Oh, my dog is being silly. I'll be right back. All right. Yeah, this is a real pickle. Maybe this explains why this never happened in Germanic languages. Yeah, Germanic languages, I don't think there are any with this kind of consonant mutation, even though Germanic languages have been in contact with Celtic languages for a long time, hence all of the early loans from Proto-Celtic into Proto-Germanic. But the only prolonged contact with insular Celtic languages that Germanic ever had were like Old English, which wasn't very much influenced by Celtic at all. Not influenced at all, but not very much. And Old Norse, which mostly came in the form of raids. So there wasn't a lot of time to have linguistic, like grammatical influence on each other. There were definitely like words exchanged in that situation, but not a ton of grammar exchanged at all. So it kind of maybe makes sense that this never happened with Germanic. Although to be fair, Proto-Celtic had a not too different of an inventory, but Proto-Goidelic and Proto-Brittonic did have a different inventory. Yeah, I'm okay with this. Do I like it? I don't know. Of course, I can always say, like, certain things don't undergo a mutation and instead something else is used. Like, whatever thing triggered the nasalization, maybe instead of it going away, it stays with spirits. Because then I can give that, like, sort of nasalized spirantization to the actual nasals and have them at least voice assimilate if they're not going to have nasal assimilation. So, like, nasals and spirits don't nasal assimilate, but they do have voicing assimilation. Or not voicing assimilation, mutation, not assimilation. I guess N does what? What does N do? What if it palatalized? I don't know. That might be interesting. Like that. Then I might spell it NH, and then it'll be like Portuguese NH, where it's nya. Yeah, like that. Maybe. That'd be funny. Then MH and BH. It will look very Irishy, but that's fine. This is weird. Yeah. This is a big moment, honestly. Big moments. See, if I keep this system, then I'm not really changing much of the constant inventory then. Then it's staying mostly the same, and it's just having this mutation happen sometimes. I need like a happy medium between these, I think. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start making the language. I'm going to make sound changes the way I like them. Like, make changes the way I think they'll sound nice. And then what I'll do is I will trigger the mutation, and then what happens. And I can adjust from there. Because I think all this theoretical stuff is just a roadblock right now. I'm going to move to the change document, and this is what I usually, I still have the ugly grid lines. I'm going to get rid of those. There we go. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start writing some sound changes from Proto-Germanic. I'm going to put some example words. I think I'm just going to use like a Swadesh list or something, like Swadesh list words here. I think I'm going to start with 17 though, number 17, because that's where like the content words kind of start. And all the pronoun-y stuff is done. I might go back to do pronouns. Well, I'm definitely going to go back to do pronouns later. I guess I'll have meaning up here, and then I'll have the proto word here. And I'm just going to put an asterisk here so I don't have to asterisk every single one, because that's annoying. Proto-Germanic words will be here. And then I'll have my sound changes, and then I'll have my ultimate word at the bottom of my sound changes. So first sound change, gotta deal with that Z. Actually, no, nasalization. Nasal be gone. Nasal vowel. I'll just do like vowel to vowel. Okay, easy done. Actually, am I happy with that? Most Germanic languages don't do this right away, and that's how we can tell that there was nasalization. The nasalized versions of long vowels, especially, short nasal vowels usually just go away because they only appear usually at the end of words, usually. Long nasal vowels at the ends of words have different outcomes to non-nasalized versions of those long vowels in the Germanic languages, and that's how we can tell the difference there. And we know that they're nasal from internal reconstruction and comparison outside of Germanic. We know they come from Proto-Indo-European forms with nasal consonants at the end. So then there are different phonemes, and the different Germanic languages differentiate them pretty uniformly. So do I want to do that? Every Germanic language does that. Maybe I just take the leap and then see what happens when you don't differentiate them. I'm just gonna be lazy, but it'll be cool. It could have a cool outcome. Yeah. Ooh, because if I get rid of word final Z, then the only thing differentiating neuter A stems and masculine A stems are the presence. Or that happen? No. No, most neuter A stems and masculine A stems will merge in the singular. If I do word final Z. Word finally. All the singular A stems now merge with the singular. Yeah, all the singular A stem masculines merge with the singular A stem neuter. So, for example, we could have like a word like okay, so we could have a word like let's do I don't want to think of adjectives. I need a noun. Let me just look at a Swedish list real quick. Sure, let's do stone. So it means with Steinas, and easy neuter one that comes to my brain right away is trewa. So that's like nasalized A at the end. The little ogonek means it's a nasalized A. That IPA wise, that is spell it in IPA. It's like that. So getting rid of nasals. Oh, and then I guess I'll put the accusatives here. The nominative accusative are the same for the neuter nouns. And then the accusative of Steinas is Steina. So getting rid of the nasalization makes this Steina and this Trewa. So the accusatives are now the same as the nominative and accusative of the neuter A stems. Neuter masculine nom, masculine accusative, a neuter nom, ac. Okay, and then if I get rid of word final Z, this becomes Steina, and now the nominative accusative are merged, and it's the same as the neuter. Where they will be different is with the plural though. It's gonna be like Steinos, Steinans, and then it's Trewo for both. Oh wait, no, masculine nom, masculine accusative, neuter nominative accusative, and these are just the plural versions. So this becomes Steino, which merges with Trewo. So how do I do the same thing here? How do I make this? Oh, well, that's easy actually, because this happens in West Germanic. The ans becomes os, which becomes os. Also, these are s's instead of z's in West Germanic, so it's like os and os. This is how you get as being both of these in Old English. They both end up being as because it's like long o just becomes a. Proto-West Germanic. This was os, and this was also os because the an, there's the nasal spirit law that happens in Old English or Anglo-Frisian. No, earlier it's the Ingvaeonic nasal spirit law is what it is. So like a vowel plus a fricative, well, plus a nasal plus a fricative, and in this case the fricative is z or s. In West Germanic it's s for whatever reason. But here at z I might do the same thing. That means I would have to have my nasal spirit law happen before this point if I want the nasal spirit law. Maybe just in final syllables or something. V and F to long version of the vowel. that's nasalized. And then F. Yeah. But I'll just have it be in the last syllable. Yeah. Last syllable. And at this point, I am going to do the thing. I'm going to do the thing that I like to do, but no other Germanic language does very early on, which is all of these are going to move down. I'm going to merge all long O and long A because they're almost the same. They're not almost the same, but long A doesn't differentiate that many words. It's rare in Proto-Germanic, so I'm just going to have it become the same thing. So in all cases, I'm just going to become A. So this is going to become Steinas. And this is also going to become Steinas. Oh, and this will become Trewa. Steinas, long nasal A. Maybe I should be writing these in IPA even if I'm not writing the Proto-Germanic in IPA, huh? Yeah, I'll write these in IPA. Can I be lazy? I would like to be lazy. Yeah, okay. Oh, I could do this in one, I can do this one sound change, can I? And I'll have it be regardless of length. And then, what about the overlong? I forgot to put my length marks in here, huh? Overlong. What do I do with overlong? I'll make overlong be O. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Long O. Ooh, I also want to do this. I also want to do the I thingy. I think I'm gonna do the I thingy. Yeah. Stop. E to I. I'll make sure it's just, I know it's just short E. I. Except before our H, because I'll do the breaking thing. All right, now let's do this. So this is going to be Triwa. Steinas. Steina. I'll leave it. Steinas. Triwa. And then I don't need this rule. And this is just the long version. And then Z goes away, so we end up with Steina. Oh wait, no, this doesn't happen here. This goes, the nasalization goes away. This becomes what this was. And then we have the Z go away. All right, so now there is literally no difference between A-stem neuters and A-stem masculines. And the paradigm for these now, which is really cool, is that it ends with an A in the singular and a long A in the plural, which is kind of great, if I'm not lying. I kind of like that. I gotta figure out my E situation. Oh, hey, North Sea Poet. Yes, it is. It is. I know, it's been a minute since I've streamed. Just making a new Germanic conlang. So that's what we're working on right now. I guess I'll go to declension just to look at what's going on here. So for A stems, we've got it's been 84 years. I think my last posted stream was at some point in July, so it has been a while. I have done streams. I did streams in July, but I didn't end up uploading most of them. Yeah, it's a new Germanic conlang. It's a Germanic conlang with some Celtic characteristics, ideally, is what I'm going to end up with. Okay, we're going to go nom, ac. Yeah, I would like the nominatives and accusatives to merge in all the cases because I'm going to use word order for these anyway. I just have not been very active in interweb spaces recently is what's going on. Life has been very busy. Maybe the busiest summer I've ever had in terms of work. Like, the summer was kind of even busier than a lot of the school year, like the other parts of the school year this year. I only have 3 cases, I guess. I guess I'll just say like core. Celtic characteristics, yes. Singular, plural. Working in the way it does suck, yeah. So masculine and neuters are just the same now. In A stems at least, and that might bear with U stems and I stems too, we'll see. But yeah, we're going to end up with A and then long A. That's what's going on here. I'd like to use my mutations for these. That's my goal with that, consonant mutations. Okay, so that's the changes we've got. I want to figure out this whole E situation though. E is going to become, yeah, I might just copy Gothic. Why not copy Gothic? Actually, I might just have this be unconditional, like screw R and H, actually. And then what I'll do is I'll have long, because there's going to be the long E, the long open E, which usually becomes A, and then we have the overlong E. In Proto-Germanic. And what I'm going to do here is I might just have, yeah, ooh. This is going to be interesting. Let's see. I'm going to do E. It's just going to become E, short E, A. E. Maybe I don't merge them. Maybe it becomes ah. No. No, I'm gonna pull what I did with the O and the A. Well, it's not. It can't be the same, and it's because of the different heights here. Is why the length is getting. Maybe there's just no short O. I could do that. I could just have there be no short O. That'd be weird, but it wouldn't be without reason. These could all just be short, long E then, I guess. That's a nightmare. This is worse than Gothic in terms of how much smashing there is. But maybe I'll like it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to actually get rid of all these different forms, because now that we know how the paradigm works, can just have the nominative singular representing it. Let's do a feminine A stem, or I guess that would be an O stem. I'm just looking at the Swadesh list. I guess I could do the word for liver. That would be fun. Libra, that would turn to Libra. Nothing else changes here. I do want to think about the declension here a little bit, though. I would once again be flattening the nominative accusative because of the loss of the nasalization. That's what's going to happen there. It's going to, because the accusative is just the nasalized version of this, and then yeah, okay. So I'll put the accusative. So this is feminine nominative, feminine accusative. Feminine. I think in the plural it's already merged in Proto-Germanic, the nominative and accusative of these. Oh no, they're not merged. The feminine accusative is the same as the genitive singular, which is just no nasalization. Yeah, so it goes libros, which is, this is exactly the genitive singular as well of liver. So this would just be the nasal version of this. No, this font is small. I'm gonna make it all size 12, I think. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe this can be 11 or 10. Then that nasalization goes away here. So now we have the nominative accusative merger, which we want. We want it just to be the core case, where we use word order for nominative and accusative. And then we have an overlong O here. This is the all, like all. libros, which we know here becomes just a long O. This one gets the privilege of staying O. This one goes to being A. Now what happens down here? No nasals, but we do get rid of Z, so this becomes O. And this just merges with the singular. The accusative plural is the same as the nominative and accusative singular, which we wantn't. So I think what we're going to do is we'll use analogy with the other A stems where the nominative and accusative plurals merge, and we'll just do the same thing here. Like, we'll say that the accusative is that instead. That happens in Old English anyway, most of the time. And a bunch of other Germanic languages do that too. So then the difference between the singular and the plural is the A to O there. So here with A stems we've got the, let's merge it. Oh, I can't merge it with a right click, okay. A stems, and then we have O stems. And O stems are going to do this. It's going to be long A already, which is what the plural of the A stems are. And then we have long O over here. We'll come back and figure out the genitive and dative stuff later. Okay, so there's a feminine noun, O stem. Let's just do, let me grab some stuff just in order from the Swadesh list. Let's do las. I should be glossing these. Stone, tree, liver, manas, many. Let's grab ainas, some. I guess I'll do 4, just to put a curveball one in there. Alright, because I want to come up with more sound changes down here. This is just the beginning here. Oh, I didn't do this. This should be stana. 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 Where's this trela? It should be triwa. There we go. Let's pull these through. This is going to be Allah, Managa. Oh, I should be IPAing this, huh? Managas. Managa. Anna. Wad. This goes, opens to A. Why can I not type the length mark here? I'm having trouble typing today. What? Fedor. And I guess I'll do some other ones. Let's do antheras. Antheras. That's the word for second or other, and then I'll do quino and gumo. I'll probably need to do more forms of these. Just look at what I want to actually do with them. Other, woman, man, and then, yeah, that's what we'll do there. I could do a different word for man though there, but we'll do that later. You know, some people say that this one is like, might as well be long I. I don't know if I agree with them though. Maybe I do, just to make this less mergy, honestly. Honestly, yeah. I like that better. Moder, father, mother, father. Okay, let's do some of these. Let's pull them down to where we're at, and then we'll add more sound changes and go back. So, first things first. This is going to become it's going to become unthera. Oh, I'm doing the vowels wrong. Untheras. Antheras. This is going to become queen. No. This is going to be gum. Nothing's happening here yet. Now let's put these through sound changes. So this can become antheras. This is going to become queen. The long O just becomes like quina, but it's nasalized still. Quina. And this is over long O, so it's going to become just O. Next is molder. That's going to become, that's a regular long O, so that's going to become long A. Mud. This is father. Oh, I forgot to turn this into an I, didn't I? And this should be an I as well, because it's, I think it literally just is Fidor in Gothic, if I'm not, probably misremembering that, but what happens here? Antheras, quino, okay, this is where this stuff happens. Mavid, and this is just favid. Alright, now we can go back and drag this all the way down. This goes down to nasal sparing. So this is going to be nasal long A. Antheras. no other nasal spirits, and then this nasal be gone. And Z be gone. Athera. And then nasal be gone here. And there's no nasals over here, or Z's. Okay. Now what do I want to do with these? Do I like how they sound? Stena. Stena. Triwa. Libra. Oh, that should be... Oh no, it's a B before R, not a V. I know it is a V before R. It's the only word initially. Yeah, Libra. Libra. Alla. Managa. Ena. Fidwar. Athera. Quina. Gumo. This is more like Romo, but I'm going to keep it a G at the beginning of a word for consistency's sake. Maver, faver. I need to do something about unstressed, like final. I need to do something about final syllables. Unstressed final syllables. I need to do something about the length there. Well, I need the length for singular plural distinction, don't I? I do. I need to keep that length distinction if we're going to be able to decline nouns at all for plurality. It's going to be a problem. Okay, let's do some more words. Just to hear, I need to hear how they sound more. Okay. Fiscals. Fiscals. Dusa. Slango. That's an alpha, I'm not gonna write it out. Wormy. Sticko. Cities. Lova. Now E's, the E's are going to come in, so this is going to be Sedis. And then the Z's be gone, Fisca. Oh wait, I'm doing it again, I'm writing it with an F. It's not an F. Why can I not type today? I'm having such a rough time with typing today, it's ridiculous. Fisca. Nasal begun, Diusa. That's fine. Urmi. Sticko. Sedi. Nasal begun, Lova. Lova. Slango. Urmi. Sticko. Sedi. Lova. Fiska. Diusa. Fader. Mader. Gumo. Quina. Athira. Ena. Hidwar. Manaha. Alla. Libra. Triwa. Stena. Triwa. Libra. Stena. If I'm just mumbling to myself, I'm just hearing how they sound to me. Okay, what can we do from here? Maybe. Maybe I can. Let's do another word. Let's do. I used them. Thickles. Thick. Okay. Do. Thickles. Thickle. Lova. Slango Diusa. Libra. I'm gonna do some stuff with these, because these are both end stems. We have a masculine end stem and a feminine end stem. So I'm trying to think of what forms I want to include here. So what's gonna happen is I want to look at the accusatives and the plurals of both of these, because they're both interesting. So I guess I need both, and I know I want the nominative and accusative plural to be the same, so I'm just going to do analogy with those anyway, so I'm just going to look at those. So I want I'll just say accusative and plural. Accusative and plural. So this goes, this is like quino, no, I believe. If I'm not mistaken. They both make their accusatives and plurals in the same way. It's just one is with an O and one is with an A. because what's happening in Proto-Indo-European is this is like an end stem. It's like with a long O and then or a long A or a long O, depending on what it is, and then an N and then an S. And then what's happening here, I think it's an S there. And then what's happening here is that S goes away, but what we end up with is a nasalized, like a syllabic nasal, and that becomes un, and then that becomes un. That's what's happening there. So same thing is happening here. That's what's happening there. Accusative M. And then this is just like is at the end. So what's going on here vowel wise? So we've got, it's gonna be like quin, non, no, quin, no, quino, nis. And then the vowels are gonna change, so it's gonna be quina, no, and quina, quinani, quinanis. And the nasal is going to go away, and then Z is going to go away. So I think I'm just going to copy paste the length mark because this is getting so obnoxious to write. I don't know why I didn't just do colons like I usually do, the cheater way. Quinano, quinani. And then what's interesting is that that ends up being very similar, at least in the feminine form, to like what the dative would be. The plural ends up being very similar to what the dative singular would be. With the masculine, there's another vowel change that makes it different. Like we end up with here. Humano. Keep forgetting to do the G. The dative singular is like this. But analogy usually makes that an A anyway. That it doesn't in Gothic, it stays an I in Gothic, but in most of the Germanic languages they level out. The vowels analogize with each other. And that's why the like oblique singulars end up being the same as the non-oblique plurals in these end stems usually. But one thing I'm considering, since the nominative and accusative, I want these to end up being the same. So one thing I'm considering is having these end stems just be n forms in the nominative. And then the vowel is what makes it plural, the I here. So what I'm saying is we end up with like analogy that makes this, instead of quina, it's quinan. And the plural is quinani. Quinani. And then this is guman. And the plural is gumani. Yeah, like guman, gumani. So then the like declension goes like an stem, and like on stem. It goes like an, ani, an, ani, like that. Forgot the dash there. But that's kind of the vibe. Like singular plural there. Because as it stands, it's like long O and long A, right? Which also is kind of weird for this to be long A, but then its plural is ani, whereas the other long A's that are feminine in the singular are O. And then this O is the same as this O. Like, it's kind of a little confusing. Another thing we could do is have analogy here and have it always be O in the singular and then ani in the plural. Like, these absorb these. That could get really tricky though. And the other thing is, like, this is usually like what you use to make masculine agents, and this is what you usually use to make feminine agents, agent nouns. So it's really interesting. It would be really interesting if they had the same declension. Because in some cases you would not be able to distinguish, like, let's say you want a word for like a hunter. Like, hunter and huntress would be formed the same way with the same root, and you'd end up with just one word for hunter that is gender neutral, which could be interesting, actually. Because one thing I'm toying with is getting rid of the length at the end again, which is what many Germanic languages do. I know length is what differentiates by singular and plural here, but part of me is wondering if I want that at all. Because what I'm considering is saying goodbye to length and then doing analogy with the plural here, bringing it over to the plural here. And then it's just A singular, O plural. And here it could be like A singular, ani plural, or O singular, ani plural. That could be what happens there. That's an idea rattling around in my brain right now. Or just ani, like I was saying. In fact, I kind of like it. Like, at the very bottom, there's analogy. I'm not going to write that yet. I don't know how many changes I'm going to have. I think I am going to do that, but not yet. I want to see what other sound changes I want, and I think I need to make more words for that, for me to see that. Let us see. Vergas, whereas, el was, das, era, maybe. No, I don't want that word. I want wonder. Trindas. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Mountain, road, yellow, day, year, because, round, dorsus, dry. Ooh, I want to do each one. Rechtas, correct. And ne was, near. I forget if that might be an E2. That may or may not be an E2. It's a long E in Gothic, but it's an A in West Germanic. Yeah, no. It is E1. It's an open E. Yeah. Okay. Let's check these out and see how I like it. So we've got bid raz whereas. Let's actually just take this all the way down. Wira. Dara. Yera. Length or nasal begun. Yera. Ooh, this will be fun. Juande. I think word initially it is H, yeah. Juan. No, it's still. That's an old English change. Juan. Double E. But that double E doesn't matter. It's just gonna be long E anyway. A la Gothic. Trindas. Trinda. Thorsus. Torsu. Richta. Nehua. I want it to be a uvular fricative. Actually, I want both to be uvular. Yeah. What if I pull a Germanic and just have the A go away? What if I have the short A go away and the long A stay A? Short word final vowels go away. Should they affect? I am actually gonna reflect this because I want this to start with the uvular later. I'm going to keep those there because the thing is, G, more than anything else, loved to be fricative. So I'm gonna reflect that with these words. Do I have another G initial word over here? No, I don't. Okay. So I'm thinking. Ooh, okay. Let me put the plural of worm here real quick. The accusative of worm. It's a masculine noun. The accusative is just a nasal version. So they'll just both be like short I, wormy. The accusative is kind of the same thing that was going on with the A stems, where it was like A-N-Z. This one was I-N-Z in the accusative plural, and the nominative plural was just a long I-Z. So what's going to happen is it's going to be length again. So let me just show that in the paradigm. So I'll go like nom-accusative, singular plural of like the original situation, I stem for masculines. And then for neuters, just imagine it merged. So it was like IZ, nasal I, long IZ, INZ. And then what happens is you have what's wrong with my brain right now? So what happens is you have, I guess I should write this in IPA, huh? Short-circuited for a second. Length. So if we follow our rules, this becomes a nasal aspirant, so it becomes long nasal I. And then we neutralize nasalization, so then it just becomes like the same. And then we get rid of word final Z, so we end up with this, and now they've successfully merged, and we have a core case I and then long I. Now what I'm considering doing, wait, I should do a U stem too. So we had thorsus there, right? That was an adjective that means dry, but that should be fine. The length for or plural the plurals for U stems are a bit different. I should do a U stem. I should do maybe Laos water. Yeah, I'll do a U stem over here. I'll drag this all down. A U stem, you have like Lagos, Lagum, but then what happens in the plural is it's weird. It's like iwis and then uns. And let me IPA this. And then what happens with our sound changes? So this becomes like just a long uns, right? And when we get rid of U, or sorry, we get rid of the nasal, so then we have like ooze, ooh, and we get rid of Z. We're left with this. And if we want to like merge things, we could go with analogy with the other boys, the other declensions, and just have it be U, long U, like take the singular and then the accusative plural. Or we could keep the nominal plural, have it be weird, and have it be like u iwi, u and iwi, lau iwi, la iwi, lau lau iwi, lau lau, la iwi. I think it's simpler that way. Because one thing, so if we're going with my like drop word final short vowels, then word final long vowels become their short counterparts. And then what we have is a situation that's like, let me actually just get rid of these other cases. We'll come back to other cases. So I'll do like, I should do it by stem. So I should do like singular, plural, and then stem. So like A stem, O stem, I stem, U stem, AN stem, ON stem. So I don't have like a before and an after. So situation now. Well, technically this is not the situation now. It's like those are sort of like, this is my situation that we're at with the different stems, and we'll deal with the R stems and other consonant stems later. But what I'm thinking of is apply sound change, two sound changes. One, short vowel all right, the sound change is down here. So the short vowel becomes nothing word finally, and then long vowels become, I can just write this as one rule actually. That's the rule. Yeah. So once that sound change goes into effect, this is the situation we're left with. It's like nothing, A, I just won't write the dashes, A, O, nothing, I, nothing, U, or iwi if we keep, or I guess it would be U, O, on, on, all right, so like that's the sound change results of this whole thing. But then what if I want to do analogy? So that's the next step here. Oops. So these are my, like, this is my new situation. You kind of have to like know if it's not an O stem or an N stem, you have to know what stem it is in order to know how to make it plural, which is kind of interesting. So yeah. One idea I have. Let's just, I think I'm just going to definitively say this is going to be a long I'm going to take it from the accusative just to make things simple. The A, I, and U stems are really simple in this situation. It's the O stems that are like weird here. Let's see. Then we have an option to do some more analogy, like mergers and stuff. So I was considering having AN stems and ON stems merge. We also have EN stems. I guess I should look at those too. Let me think of an EN let me think of an example of an EN stem. There are not as many, but it is, EN is like a productive maker of abstract nouns out of nouns, or usually it's adjectives and then other verbs, and I think sometimes verb, but it's usually adjectives. Like you take an adjective and you add an E, like a long E, like a nasal, and you make it into, therefore, an abstract noun that means the like concept of that thing. So like you can go from like tall to, or like high to height, or long to length, that way. Both of those use a thol. It's like ethol is this the productive suffix there. It's ethol, which is usually like thu, or just in Old English, and that's how we have like length. It's like langithol is what it is in Proto-Germanic. Langas, and then it's like langithol, and that becomes length, which is then length. And I could just use that and not have EN stems, because that's most of what EN stems are. I think there are some exceptions, like feminine forms of certain nouns, but mostly it's just like, it's like the nis or the th suffix. And the way that it declines is pretty much the same as the ON stems, where it's like, I guess I'll put my old format back. It's like nom-accusative, singular plural. We have long nasal I, and then we have long I, and then oo, ino, and then we have long I, knees, long I, neens, I think that's how it goes. Or not eens, it's uns, just like the ones, which are we're just not bothering with that. We're merging like we usually do. So it's gonna be, that's just gonna end up being long I. This is gonna be long ino, like we saw the accusatives being like anu and onu. Actually, not anu, it was anu and anu. And then we have enis. So when you put it through, actually I didn't do that with these either, huh? We need another example. So it's going to be, I'll do the nominative and then comma and then the accusative. So that's going to be, on. This is going to be on. And you can see how the accusative now is the same as the plural. And why we have to pick one. So the same thing is going to happen with EN stems then. It's going to be like long I, long IU, and then it's going to be like long I, my dog is hearing people in the hall. All right. So I think, and then what happens here is we just end up with I, and then long IN. It's just like the ON stems. And then it's the same here for the plural. So the question then, we could do a thing where these nouns don't differentiate singular and plural, but that's going to be extra annoying, especially because these are often going to be people if we're using these as the agent noun formers, at least these ones. If these are going to be the agent noun formers, then having them not differentiate singular and plural, whereas like other things do differentiate singular and plural, it's going to be kind of strange. This cross-linguistically, when we have nouns that some nouns that make distinctions and some nouns that don't, especially with plurality, it's usually human nouns that do make distinctions and non-human nouns that don't. So it would be kind of backwards and strange. Not that I've never done it in the conlang before, but it's for a language that's being derived like this, I would not want to do that. So something's got to happen here with these. I'm going to move O stems down because they're kind of in this more iffy category here. Like the plural is just being marked by adding a vowel to the end of the word, which is nice. That is not happening here. Also, what we have, I'm trying to be consistent here with not putting dashes. Also, what we have here is like, I don't know, kind of ugly. I think I am going to merge it. So step 3 is to do mergers. So analogy, I mean. I have two minds about this. This is the situation here. And one thing I was considering is having analogy here. That would be a hard analogy to justify, actually. What would be more possible maybe here is if because O stems are often, when they're not referring to people, they're often abstract or mass nouns or like things in nature that whether or not you count them, you're probably going to have a number anyway if you're counting them, or a word like many. So another thing I was thinking is like, oh, this long A is the same as this long A. And kind of a reverse what probably happened to form the feminine nouns in the first place, which is a sort of confusion of the plural neuter or like the collective neuter and the feminine singular, kind of go the other way around and have these be interpreted as like inherently plural nouns. And then it's just A, because then these are just A stems that are always plural. Like there's just no singular of these. They're just like forever plurals, which does happen in some languages. There are certain words that are just always plural. Like an example of this I'm thinking of is like river is agua. You could just say like river, rivers. It's like the concept of river, like rivers. It's just always plural. It's fine. It's always plural. And that would just be like agua, I think is what that would be. Agua. I guess that would be like agua. With the sound changes I put in. And there's just no singular of that. And another one's like lake. I'm not only thinking of water ones. So that's just a laka. There is a version of the word for sun that is an O stem. It's not like you're going to have many suns. So you can have multiple rivers and multiple lakes, that's true. But like lake are big, lake is, I don't know. I think it'll be fine. Looking at the Swadesh list here, I see feather. Feather is also an O stem. And nose. Most people only have one nose. And liver. Like we already had, like, how often are you going to count livers? I mean, maybe if you're eating multiple livers of an animal or something. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of these nouns are nouns where the number is not super salient. Either like it's obvious from context how many of the thing they're talking about there are, or if you like it'll be marked to have to make it plural anyway, so use other ways of making it plural, or like specifying whether it's singular or plural. Like it being a forever plural A stem won't be the end of the world, I feel like. I'm trying to think of like examples where O stems are people though. That's what I'm worried about. That's the actual like concern for me is the prospect of a feminine person that you need, that's an O stem that you need to differentiate. I'm trying to think of examples. I'm gonna look some up and see if I can find some. Because if I'm being honest, like, most of the O stems I can think of off the top of my head are not people. They're like ideas and things. I guess there are some like feminine animals that come to mind that I might want to have a singular plural distinction of. Axe. Axe is an O stem. Axe, axes. axes are always plural. That's kind of that's kind of weird. And I could always also just kind of change the stem that it is. That happens in some Germanic languages where, like, inexplicably in one Germanic language it's in a different declension than it is in the others. Meadow, again, that's another sort of like natural feature of the landscape. It's the name of a river. Body part. A lot of body parts are actually an stems. But yeah, okay, a mare. It's the word for horse, feminine. Yeah, to make the feminine version of some, like a person or a animal, sometimes instead of it being an on stem, you'll see a yo stem. Like it'll be jo. It'll be like ya, I guess, in the plural, or it'll be yo in the plural and ya in the singular. At like this stage, ya, yo. And if I just flat that to ya, that's kind of tricky because it's like, this would be like, for example, the word that I'm looking at is like margio, I think is what it is. I think there's an epithetic I actually. Because sometimes io, margio, that would be margia, yeah, margia. So it would be like margia, margio, mares. Mares are always plural. But what I'm thinking about there is, because the word for the masculine word for horse here is marjas, which would just be marja. A stem now would just be marj in plural marja. Margia. One thing I wonder is if it's like a noun that is like animate, that's the word I'm looking for, animate. I could reshuffle these into like one of the end stem kinds, because then what I can do is because that would still come out to A and it would still look like, because I don't want to use the oblique stems for these. I think I've decided because they're the same as the plural, except maybe here, because these are abstract nouns. Like I can't think of any exceptions. The word for female wolf, I think, is an in stem, but I could easily change that to a different one. Old English uses a completely different thing for that. I think it's just a suffix in. It's like wilven or something like that, or just wilv, even. Right? Doesn't matter. I might do this. But one thing I was considering then is this is confusing because of the A and the A. So, and the O and the O. So, see, I'm trying to get rid of this. So if I just have like straight up A here, right? I could have O be the N, O-N and A-N stems merged. O-A-N. And then all these go there. And I do that merger I was talking about before, where all the sort of like agent nouns end up merging gender-wise. And that's fine in this case, because to make horse into female horse, you take the word for horse, which is an A stem, and make it an agent noun to make it feminine, which is kind of interesting. It's like give it more agency than the male nouns, the male horses. Not actually, but just it'll be in the grammatical category that tend to be more animate. and then just have these be een. Right? We could have like straight up een, straight up a. You know, even more, we could, if there's no conflict with an A stem, we could even have it be where if there's like an O stem that we need to have it be like a singular version of it, we could even just take off the A, kind of like a reanalysis. Let's say like let's say the word for rivers becomes like agua, but I want a word for one river. I could even just have it be like agua, just straight up make it an A stem, singular river, plural rivers. I'll do something about the pronunciation of that if I don't like how that sounds. In the case of like yo stems, I might just have it be O. I might just make it like margio. And then it'll probably be margian from there. Reanalyze it as a N stem. Because the thing is, there are also yon stems, which often make feminines. And so it's kind of like yo and yon are merging. Which makes sense given that I'm getting rid of the nasal distinction, because that's the only distinction between yo and yon stems in the nominative, is that one is nasal and one is not. What I'm talking about is there is a suffix yo that makes things feminine, but there's also a very common suffix. It's yon. Oops, there we go. Why isn't it? I'm trying to add the length mark there. Yon, which often makes feminine humans, like female. Women, that's the word I'm looking for. Like you take a root and you add yon to it and it makes it like woman who does X a lot of the time. It's not just straight up oh, but it's yon. And so we could say these merge early on and they both become yo. Yo yan. And it's gorgeous and beautiful. Okay, so I think that's what I want to do. All of these kind of merge up to A stems. So I guess what I could do is move the O stems back up with the A stems, because they tend to be, I mean, they decline very similarly. And I'll just say they go down. I'm just going to have these be short too. Irregular shortening. In. And those are like, so like my abstract nouns, which don't need to distinguish gender or number, will just be in. And there we go. We have our declension. All right. Let's go back to the sound changes. God, that's a lot of analogy. Okay, what am I gonna do? I just had a sound change come in, which is this one, which affects this mana. Humo. Oh, I figured these out, so I don't need to worry about these anymore. I do need to figure out my consonant stems though. Any other or I really don't have much H, do I? Birra, 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 wira, wira, wira. These should be fricatives as well. Rilwa, dara, dara. Juande, trinda, richta. It's gonna become very interesting to try to figure out what stem each noun is just by looking at it once these final vowels are gone. Does my sound change there? Let's apply it actually here. Stain. This is my new copy paste through. Livra. Now it looks like a plural A stem. Livers. Al manar. And nothing happens there. Acid. Queen. Woman is gonna have to analogize to quino, I think. Yeah. Comment. Fisk. Dius. Slango. Slango. Worm. Sticko. Save. Love. Thick. Virg. 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 Vir. 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 Hill. Daar. Hier. Oops. Why can I not do this? Juande. Trind. Furs. Richt. It's just Middle English. Richt. Nech. Okay. There we go. We will figure out what the next steps will be here next time. I don't know how much I like this actually. Trio Libra. Stain. Slug. Stain. Stain. I kind of honestly don't want to do this sound change, so I'm gonna undo this. There we go. No, that's better. I might end up pronouncing them like that sometimes, but that's just going to be an allophonic thing. Yeah, okay, that's a little bit better. I just wasn't like I was looking. I think, yeah, there's definitely some more sound changes I need to make things sound nice, especially with these like final clusters and like these clusters. I might do a parenthesis with these. I might just reanalyze all of my O stems as A stems. Like most of them. Instead of doing that like always plural thing, I'll selectively keep them plural. Right? So this is like analogically, I'll just be like leave it there. Queen. Stico. Yeah. And I want my analogy to happen at this point, because then I can put the parenthesis in after. I think there's some other changes I want though first. I want to do something with S clusters. I'm thinking back to my mutation musings. What am I going to do about those S clusters? Have something happen to S. Then what does it do to the consonant after? Because one thing I was thinking about is having a sound change that changes like SP, ST, SK. This happens in quite a few languages where these parentize just already. Like that. If that's already the case, then how do I've just created more of these, really. Which could be fine on its own, but then maybe with the mutations, they might behave differently than these, and then how do I tell what they were originally? If it was originally this versus it being, I don't know. Like, let's say I have like true, like, and then I have like that comes from SP. Like voicing, this can become like, let's just make it F for fun for now. Voicing, this becomes V. I don't know, V. And then what happens here? Like, does F also become V? Or do I do a thing where it was like, it didn't parentize because it wasn't SP, it was ZP. And it's like ZB or something. So maybe I spell it like PH or something, and then it becomes like ZP. ZB, but maybe it's spelled like SP again or something, or ZP, but it's pronounced ZB. And then nasal wise, I don't know, like F, like that, versus mv. I don't know, it's tricky. like this is what ends up happening. Like I'll probably spell this like F. I don't know, V maybe? Maybe I will spell it B. V. An MV, and then spell this one PH. ZB. PH, that's so weird. So a word like, I don't know, I think of an SP word. I'm mostly thinking of, I'm seeing verbs on my Swadesh list. Let's see, like a word like spew. No, I don't know. Let's say that's like, that becomes like fee one or something. Fee one. Is B1 and fee one versus an actual F word like fader. Vader, Vader, I don't know, or even like that nasalized, or that like labio-dental nasal V, that V with the, yeah, Vader, Vader. That's not what it's going to end up being. I'm just looking at it, the F there. I don't know, we'll see. But what I'm realizing is it's been 43 minutes since this stream was supposed to end. I got lost in the sauce and stayed on stream for a whole extra almost hour. So we are going to stop there. This is going to take forever to upload. But hopefully some interesting things were accomplished today with this conlang. I'm going to brainstorm some more before next time so I have an idea of what I'm going to do, like more with the sounds. I have some ideas of where I want to go with the sounds a bit. I might even abandon the idea of doing mutation because it's really causing problems for me. It's really causing problems for me right now. But I am going to play more with the sound changes a bit. I do think I'll have lenition somewhere, just maybe not grammatical. But yeah, we'll see. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my stream just by being here, watching the recording on YouTube. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comments below the YouTube upload of this. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for future streams, I would love to hear those. If you'd like to support me, links into the description and everywhere else. And next week we will do probably journaling, but maybe a preview of the Patreon exclusive series. Either way, I hope to see you next week, and I hope you have a great rest of whatever time zone you're in. Thank you, and farewell.